just meowed.
Hello and welcome to Honey Badger Radio number 67. Feminism is for everyone, or else. I'm your host, Allison Tiemann, and with me today are the usual suspects and one unusual suspect. Yes, Bunny Blackwell is back. Hello, Bunny Blackwell.
Hi, thank you for having me again, and I am really looking forward to this one in particular.
Judging from your Twitter messages to me, you are looking forward to getting stuck in, just like the deadly rabbit of whatever.
The evil rabbit of Antioch.
Antioch,
yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. This is an issue that really actually makes me want to go for the throat a little bit. So I am very happy to be given the opportunity. Just wave that meat in front of me. Let's go.
And with us as well as Hannah Wallen, Mike Stevenson, or Dr. Randamercam, and Brian Martinez, the Doge, who will be your Doge in charge tonight as soon as I am complete with my intro. So today's topic is about feminists' obsessive need to get everyone to adopt their label. Before I get into it, I'm going to talk about why I decided to call myself a men's rights activist. A long time ago, 2003, I was involved in men's rights communities, but I did not call myself a men's rights activist. I was interested in the things that they talked about, but I did not want to adopt the label for my own reasons, one of which is that I don't like labels. And I apologize if there's a cat fight that's starting behind me, but I'll try to continue through it. But as I ended up being part of the community for about 10 years before I even considered adopting the label. And the reason why I did was a while back on Reddit in 2012, there was, we learned that the Southern Poverty Law Center had declared men's rights groups, including A Voice for Men and Men's Rights on Reddit, hate groups. Of course, they then went on to sort of maybe possibly withdraw what they said about men's rights groups being hate groups. But they still kept us on misogynist watch. When they heard this, they heard that the men in the men's rights Reddit heard that their community that had been up to that point in time their only support group that understood the things that they were going through was stigmatized to that level by our society. A lot of them started to talk, or a few of them started to talk about suicide, started to express suicidal ideation, including one of them who we've never heard from again. At that point, I did a video, and I believe it's still available on my channel, which is Gender Addict, or actually I call it Based Badger now. And I said that if the SPLC wanted to malign men's rights groups, then it could malign me along with them. If it wanted to stigmatize those groups, it could stigmatize me along with them. I adopted the label because I wanted to do something, regardless of how potentially completely ineffectual, to prevent those guys from feeling that kind of despair, that kind of black despair that was leading them to talk about suicide. And that's why that's why I started to call myself a men's rights activist. If that hadn't happened, I never would have. I took the title of men's rights activist as an act of men's rights activism. I probably wouldn't have taken it on otherwise. That's the only time it made sense to me to do it. When I could say that this is actually an act of advocacy and activism on behalf of men. Men's rights activist or advocate is the noun of the verb. It has meaning as an action. It doesn't really have any meaning otherwise, at least in my opinion. It is the act. It is a person who engages in the act of advocating for men or advocating for men's rights. There's nothing else to it. I don't care, personally, if people call themselves men's rights advocates or activists. I think if you're engaging in an act of advocating for men's rights or agitating for them, when someone says, you're one of those men's rights activists, I would suggest you point out how fatuous an observation that is, since you are one insofar as you are, at that moment, doing the verb that they are nouning. Therefore, they're adding nothing to the conversation by pointing that out. Now, feminism has no meaning as an action. Is there an action that feminism claims for itself? And if there isn't, is feminism itself a meaningful word? Feminists say all you have to do is believe in equality and you're a feminist, but there's already a word for people who believe in equality. They're called egalitarians. In fact, it makes no sense to call them anything but egalitarians. So taking it all at face value, if feminism doesn't reference an action or a belief, then what does it reference? Without its own belief or action, feminism is a nonsense term. It's meaningless gobbledygook. Which opens up another question. Why are feminists obsessed with everyone calling themselves feminist if feminism as an idea is hollow and useless? Is it just a placeholder just so you can force people to demonstrate subservience? I'm going to make you call yourself a feminist because otherwise you're going to get beaten up? Is that doing feminism? Forcing people on their metaphorical faces in the face of your moral self-righteousness? Of course, we all know, including any feminists listening, that feminism is simultaneously meaningless and the most meaningful thing in existence. Meaningless in that there are apparently as many feminisms as there are women in the world, and meaningful in that it's the only good thing, the only right and true thing in the world. In understanding what feminism means, I use something I call an existential clause. What that is an answer to a simple question. Would this phenomena, this event, this law, this advertising campaign, this curriculum, would this exist without feminism? And if it wouldn't, I consider feminism to blame for its existence. Would a presumption of mother custody exist without feminism? No. Therefore, this inequality is feminist. Would the asymmetrical expectation that men serve the state but women don't while having the same citizenship rights exist without feminism? No. Therefore, this inequality is feminist. Would primary aggressor laws exist without feminism? No. Therefore, bigotry against male domestic violence victims is feminist. Judging from the patterns that form by the answer to would this exist without feminism, feminism isn't about ending inequality, but is a belief about equality that justifies removing men's rights. So what is feminism? It's not a desire to end inequality. It's the belief that men are always more equal than women. In Animal Farm, an allegory about class oppression in both capitalist and communist societies, at the end the pigs, who dominated over the other animals, wrote, "All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others." If George Orwell wrote Animal Farm today, he'd have to update it after having observed modern feminist behavior. You see, the feminist pigs wouldn't say all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. They would say all animals are equal, but pigs are always treated worst of all. So we come again to why feminists insist that everyone bear their label. Is it some sort of missionary zeal? Or is it because when you agree that you're a feminist, you agree to the unwritten rule that all humans are equal, but women are always treated worst of all? And if anyone disagrees, somehow it doesn't work anymore. All right, I'm going to throw this open to the floor. And I'm giving you opportunity to rebut or say what you wish. I know you were typing in there.
Hannah. We want to give you the flow.
Yeah, sorry, I was struggling with the mute button. So, I really don't have a lot to rebut in what you were saying. The only thing that I would point out is that the SPLC didn't actually officially ever declare men's rights groups hate groups. They had an article in which they said they were misogynistic. And this is something that feminists tried to use, and they have tried to use for years since this happened, or months and months since this happened. As I remember, they had been baiting and false reporting the men's rights subreddit. They had like concern trolling with shaming tactics. They had a bunch of other things. But the one that I really wish I had archived was they would make a self-post. And see, I wrote about this a while back, but they would make a self-post, and this was back before Reddit had done something to show when you edited your post. So now, if you edit your post on Reddit, an asterisk will show next to the post to show that it has been edited, so it's not the original text. But prior to that instatement of the asterisk, in Reddit's men's rights, they would make these posts where it would say, like, you know, something that you would congratulate somebody for. Oh, that's great! I'm really glad you did that. Congratulations, or, you know, something along those lines. And they would get a bunch of comments on it, a bunch of happy comments on it. And then they would change it to, I took my girlfriend out and raped her, or some other terrible thing. And then they would archive or screenshot that. And then they would post it elsewhere on Reddit as evidence of misogyny in the men's rights subreddit. And I suspect that those were also sent to the SPLC as evidence that this was being done. And to counter this behavior, the mods of Reddit's men's rights had to create a bot. They had to employ a bot. Actually, it was created by another Redditor to archive posts, so there would be an accurate record when those accusations were made, and they could prove that people were not commenting, "You go," on a post for, "Oh, I raped my girlfriend," because people were actually believing that. So that's the one correction I have really for this, is that they didn't come out and say these groups are officially hate groups. They came out and said there's a lot of misogyny in the discussions that take place in men's rights forums, and these are the forums that we think are the worst. But they didn't really get very specific, you know, as to what the misogyny was. They just basically threw misogyny out as a label. So really, in a way, what the SPLC did was use an ad hominem attack to delegitimize men's issues discussion, you know, to delegitimize advocating for equal representation and equal treatment, you know, equal consideration for human rights and law and policy. It's like, apparently, if they can consider discussion that takes place on those topics misogynistic, then it's not legitimate to say that there should be equal consideration for human rights, regardless of sex or race or whatever. It's not legitimate to say that, because, you know, some of the people saying it have questionable opinions. So therefore, it's all right to say, you know, men can't be raped. It's all right to say fathers are deadbeats and abusers. It's all right to keep them from their families and put draconian child support obligations on them and make them homeless, because, you know, some guys say things that are a little misogynistic, right? Or at least they can be labeled that way. You know, that's a perfect excuse for advocating cutting the genitals of infant boys. You know, but hey, it gets treated that way. And I guess that's my take on it. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you really boil it down to the nitty-gritty of what it is, does it?
Do you have any thoughts on why feminists need to have everyone be a feminist?
Well, yeah. The same reason that that in a theocracy where the leadership is exploiting the people, they need everyone to be part of their religion. Because you can't question feminism and still continue to financially support it. They can't make their money if they're in the minority. They can't make their money if people are allowed to say, now, wait a minute, you just asked me to financially support an organization that is actually helping to put innocent men in jail. Why should I financially support that? You know, kind of like what my friend went through. Where the local domestic violence victims, I'm tired of not naming, Artemis House of Dayton, Ohio, helped to torture a guy for 7 years. I'm tired of not naming them. You know, I don't think they can false report me to Child Protective Services now. My son's about to be an adult. They need people to be feminist, because feminists won't question when they do that. They need people to be feminist because feminists won't question the idea that when a woman goes into court and lies, perjures herself when she files a false charge, that she shouldn't be prosecuted for that, the same as a guy who's engaging in tax evasion, or who is lying about having not broken into somebody's house. or who's lying to get out of, having his affair detected. Those guys would get jail time. Those guys would get fines. But as soon as your lie is about being raped or about being beaten by your husband, you can get away with it. And feminists will not question that. Feminists will not question exempting women from legal standards that men face. Feminists will not question not caring as much about genital cutting of infant genitals if the infant in question is a boy. That's why they need people to be feminists, because they can't make their money and they can't have their political influence if they can be questioned.
Just to sum up, so you're suggesting that, or you're saying, perhaps, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, that if feminists get just the lay person, the average woman on the street, to invest in the name feminist, as soon as these, atrocities come out, those women can be relied upon to try to defend the title rather than address the atrocity.
I see it all the time on Twitter. Every single time I post to a hashtag where I am criticizing an instance where feminist advocates, feminist groups, feminist lobbyists, and feminist researchers have successfully caused a change in law or government policy which causes discrimination against men. For instance, changing the non-gendered Family Violence Services and Protective Act of 1984 in the United States to the very gendered and very discriminatory Violence Against Women Act of 1994. When I talk about stuff like that, every single time I get feminists coming forward and saying, "Oh, you can't say that's all feminists. It's not all feminists. It's not that big of a deal. It's just those guys. Those are just radical feminists. Feminism isn't that bad." And they cannot criticize those guys. They cannot accept that criticism. And they will not accept that behavior stems from feminist ideology. Instead, they have to turn the conversation to, it wasn't me, it wasn't us, we're not that bad, we didn't do nothing. Well, you did. You supported a movement that caused this problem and is continuing to cause this problem and is continuing to lobby for this shit. So yeah, that's why they need women to be invested in feminism. That's why they need men to be invested in feminism too. They need these people to be invested in a movement that they cannot question. They need these people to be so invested that as soon as it's criticized, they will act as shields. They need useful idiots.
Yeah, they use the equality clause to hide or to defend what they're doing. They say, we're for equality, how can you be against that? That's what, I didn't put it in my intro into my essay, but that was one of the things I wanted to bring up. Feminism is a state-funded, it's a state-funded service to bring about gender equality, right? We could look at it like roads. They're supposed to fix the roads, or they're supposed to provide adequate medicine for those of us who are Canadian. They're a state-funded service to create equality between genders. But they also get to define what equality looks like. It's like having road crews or state-funded the transport agency in the government not only being tasked with fixing the roads, but defining what a fixed road looks like. I mean, how soon before corruption seeps in and they start saying, no, a fixed road has potholes. Mm-hmm. A fixed road is eroding away to the point where the tarmac, there's huge crevices, and you have a constant risk of bending your axle or busting a tire on your road. That's a fixed road.
Well, and then get two groups of people.
How have we gotten to the point where we've allowed a government-funded institution designed to bring about a particular end? How have we come to the point where we've allowed them to not only be cast and granted the authority to bring about that particular end, but define what that end is? It's insane.
Yeah, and then we've also got two groups of people. We've got the group that's defining roads as including potholes and big cracks and crevices and so on. And then we've got the group going, well, those aren't real highway repairmen. We're the real highway repairmen. We talk about how the roads should be better. So we're the ones that you should be paying attention. You shouldn't blame highway repairmen for how bad the highways are. Because just
No
because,
true asphalters.
just because they're the ones that are actually affecting the highways doesn't mean that they have, any responsibility for the highways. It doesn't mean that they define what highway repair is. We who talk about it in coffee shops and college courses, we are the ones who define what highway repair is. And that's the feminist argument for stop saying feminism is responsible for things that are done by feminists. And then they have the gall to say, but you wouldn't be able to vote if it wasn't for feminism, because feminists made that happen. So they'll blame Congress and they'll blame the president, they'll blame, everybody but feminism for things that feminists lobbied for, until it's something that they want to take credit for, that they consider good. And then all of a sudden, it's feminist lobbying that made it happen, not all of the people who are engaged in the actual mechanics of doing it.
Mike, did you want to say something?
Bunny.
Oh, no, Mike can go first. No. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, we spoke at length a few weeks ago about humanity's need for an other, an enemy. But what we didn't speak of was humanity's need for a higher power. These needs might not be comparable in any sort of pattern, but they're both worth considering. One difference is the other is usually made flesh, and the higher power is usually something abstract. In fact, it's usually something supernatural. Usually. Or is it? We now know there is a secular concept that acts as a perfect placeholder, a perfect neuroreceptor for the concept of a supernatural higher power, and it's equality. It's that thing you can say you're in favor of without any obligation to describe it. I love Jesus, God is great, I'm in favor of equality. As a lifelong atheist, it pains me to admit that the most insipid of these statements, at this point in history at the very least, is I'm in favor of equality. It's because, practically speaking, accumulatively speaking, when you say that, you will very seldom be met with the challenge, what do you mean by equality? Particularly if it's a feminist who's saying it. And why? Because that conversation ends up going down one of the roads. The wage gap, patriarchy. All roads lead to a black hole of logic where equality means make things better for women because of upside down land rah I'm not listening, and you're a misogynist if you disagree. Just like Allah in practice actually means make things better for Muslims. Discuss.
Oh. Bunny, you gotta have some thoughts. Okay, so yeah.
What do I ever? But Doc has gone off on a really good tangent there. So I want to let people address that first, because I think he's exactly correct. And when you have this ephemeral view, you can define it to mean literally whatever you want. And when you try and define it, say, well, what do you mean by equality? When you attempt to pin it down, that's when you start to see the beads of sweat come out on the head of most feminists I've discussed these things with. Because some do have arguments, of course, like you do. But for many, it's, well, I've never been asked this. And especially here in Canada, as some of you know, it is an absolute fait accompli here. And that's... people do not question feminism here by and large, especially not in the academic environment. So it's like you're presenting people with the idea that they don't have feet. Well, how do you know you have feet? Well, because I can see them. Okay, describe your feet to me. And feet, of course, you can, because they're right there and you can talk about the tarsals and blah, blah, blah. But when you talk about feminism, it's almost become a supernatural idea. To the points that, because I have been taking notes. So your opening, Allison, when you talk about labeling and how you came to adopt the MRA label, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's a great story, and I've been very impressed actually with how you focus on what people do and not how they label themselves. That to me is impressive, because me personally, I want to be judged on what I do, not on what I'm telling you, because I either pass your sniff test or I don't. It doesn't matter what label I use. So I'm very happy with that, and I love that perspective, and you reflect that in many other things you talk about too. So it's not just with MRA. You're very consistent with this. Just something I've observed. To the second point, feminism, why it is being pushed so hard. I view feminism, as it is being pushed, as a very clever kind of virus. It has this corona of plausible deniability, but it can be mutated to serve literally any purpose. It's like the Doc Bronners of pernicious ideology. You can use that shit for everything. And, you want to advocate for this aspect. Even people who say, well, feminism is for men. Well, okay. You're just twisting it, aren't you? To forward your idea. You want different rights at school? Well, feminism. Well, you want more money in this area? Well, feminism. So, it's a mutating virus as far as I can tell. And Alison, you made a good point about who gets to define it. It is so subjective now that you can't define it. It has lost all meaning. I completely agree with you there. I have been in many online frisons where I've been told, no, you're completely wrong, you don't understand feminism. And actually, to prep for this talk, I read some online articles from the other point of view. And the one that, oh my gosh, I couldn't even get mad, it was so funny. But it was, what do you do if your boyfriend's not feminist? It was hysterical. And it just went through how to change him. And it says right there, don't worry, ladies, you can change him. And I'm just rubbing my head going, oh no, this will not end well. And there is that presumption that if you are not a feminist, you are just uneducated. And all of the tropes that I've observed in why people are accused of not liking feminism, they're all in this one article. It was fabulous. They're uneducated and they just don't understand, and it's your job to teach them. You have to point it all out. And then you've got he's just an asshole, ditch him. And then there's well, maybe he's in the middle, give it some time, but don't be afraid to be on your own. And so I was so ramped up for this. Yeah, I actually did my homework like a good girl. That's for my last point. Hannah, I absolutely agree with your assessment. Feminism has become, and I don't think most people are aware of this on a conscious level, but it has become a get-out-of-jail-free card for women doing shitty things. Because if you can point to this supernatural, it's the patriarchy's fault, I'm not bad, I was drawn this way, and that's one of my favorites, of course, being a bunny, but then you have a pass, and it's becoming baked in and grandfathered into the fabric of how our culture is working right now. Like original sin, when women do bad things, well, they didn't have a good father figure, or, well, she was abused, or, well, men are just assholes. And there's all this excuse making, and this is translating, when you flip it over like a pancake, this is translating to, because women are, and again, this is fait accompli, it's just accepted, women are oppressed. You flip over the pancake, and all of a sudden women get extra stuff. So it's the reason feminism is being pushed so hard, it's working.
Mm-hmm. I will also want to add that, what, Allison, did you want to say something? No? Quiet?
Well, yeah, I did actually want to. I think there's a. Wait, I'm talking. Can't hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, I was thinking. I mean, feminism does it does give you. I can imagine. It gives you a sort of a position of the moral high ground in most arguments if you're a woman. You always trot out the women were oppressed. Of course, women who even don't identify as feminists will use that line. And then you just suddenly have won the argument. And I remember that my husband was having an argument with one of his female relatives. And it had something to do with the kitchen for some reason. It was really bizarre. About him cooking. Or it being his kitchen or something. And she tried to one-up him because he was winning the argument. She tried to one-up him by saying, well, women have been oppressed throughout all of time. And he said, well, I don't care. I think it's time for men to get something back now. I don't care about that now. This doesn't pertain to this particular issue. And I don't even remember what they were arguing about. But that was her trump card. Of course, it didn't really work because good luck using that trump card on Jonathan. In fact, this is a complete aside that I apologize, but I have to get it out. There was this, we went to Vancouver for sort of a convention, and we were on a bus, and my husband likes motorcycles. And the bus driver was talking to my husband about motorcycles, and my husband said, well, I want to get a Spider. And the bus driver was like this older guy. He was like, that's a woman's bike.
Yeah? Shit. Hold on. I think we dropped. That's a woman's bike. Allison. Is anyone there?
That might have been the end of the story.
Oh, no, Allison.
Still here.
Oh, so Allison dropped. So you guys are here. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. All right.
So we just don't get to.
No, Allison will
I
have to
want to hear
come.
about the spider.
No, Allison will have to come back in. R.I.P.
And
Allison.
talk about the spider.
Tell us about the spider. I think I know where this story is going. The one thing I wanted to add in is that it seems like because these days people in general are getting really tired of feminism. It's not just because there are anti-feminists and MRAs arguing against feminism and other people who are just sick of it, sick of the whole attitude and miasma surrounding it. This is actually only making those people who have decided they're feminists to defend their label so much. They defend their label more than they defend the actual issues that they want to fight for. They find the label more important to protect than the actual practice that they claim the label represents. So that's the thing that I notice that is the most sort of telling about a lot about feminists. And Allison was saying, Allison, I think you're back. You dropped. Allison, you're there?
I did.
Okay.
I did drop. I apologize. I don't even know where my. You know what? My anecdote was completely self-indulgent, so I'll give a pass on it.
All right. Well, anyway, I think that I'm reminded of when we had a slut walk here in Chicago, and NC Clark, who you guys might have known as Sour Grape, she lives close by, so she came to visit me after she went to the slut walk to record it, and she made a thing about it on her channel. And she spoke to a lot of the feminists at the slut walk, and a lot of these are younger people, so. And there was something about belonging to this idea that's bigger than yourself that was so attractive to them that's actually a lot of where this, for the people who are not politically and financially invested in it, like the ones that Hannah pointed out, but for like common people, mostly women, but some men too, a lot of male feminists, I think that there is a need to belong to something that feels greater than yourself. And the feminist label, which doesn't actually require action, you can just say you are one, and then that includes a bunch of stuff that you automatically believe that everyone has to agree with because, as Allison was pointing out, it gives you the moral high ground, it feels nice, there's a lot of great platitudes that you can speak to. If you don't dig too deep and you don't look at the history too closely and you don't actually like research facts, you get to say, women's equality, obviously necessary, obviously it's a good idea. Anybody who opposes it can't be a good person. They can't know what they're talking about. And part of where I get this from is, my peers that are involved in it, everything I see on television that discusses it, everyone in media, etc. That are sort of repeating it, and my gender studies professors and stuff like that. So, Allison, I guess we want to finish the story. So,
yeah, apparently people want me to finish the story. Okay.
So anyway, where we left off was the bus driver said that's a woman's bike, and then you dropped.
The Spider is a woman's bike.
Yeah.
It actually looks really cool, but he insisted it was a woman's bike for whatever criteria he used. I didn't know. And Jonathan said to him, "I like it. that makes it a man's bike.
Nice.
I'm so like, yeah, ladies, I've never seen a lady get that whole, oh, I'm oppressed over on him, or a man get the whole, oh, that's a girl, you can't use that, or do that, or be that on him either. And it's a really indulgent story, so that's why I wasn't going to continue it.
People often say to me, yeah, Honey Jack is a woman's drink. All right, well, shake that woman's hand. She's inspired some genius.
That's awesome. I wanted to, just before we move on, because I'm sure we will, I wanted to tie something that Brian was saying, because what you've said actually fits perfectly into what Mike was saying about feeling good and stuff like that. To get back to what Mike was referring to, I think it very much is like rats hitting the button so their brains light up with the good feelings of I'm doing something great and I feel wonderful. And I not to get on an atheist topic, I think the disintegration, if I may use that word, of religiosity and the church, however you may feel about that, that's for another show maybe, but I think it has left a void. I think the disintegration of the family has left a void. And part of why I think feminism has taken taken power, essentially, is I think it can be tied to the lack of fathers in the home. Because, yeah, totally.
Easily.
And so you've got this, there's no longer that kind of churchy community, okay, we're getting our brains lit up, awesome. There's no longer the strong family unit. And if you don't have a strong family unit, you always have holes in you. You can go to therapy and you can do your best, and I'm not saying blame mommy and daddy your entire life, obviously, get the fuck over it and move on with your life eventually, but you're always going to have that piece missing. And people are trying to fill the void like rats. They're hitting the button, and feminism right now is the easiest, most banal way to do that. Because what can people say about feminism? Well, everything we're saying about feminism. But our arguments, and by our I mean people who criticize feminism, they're almost like speaking a foreign language. I have honestly had people look at me and go, "What did you just say?" Because they've never heard it criticized out loud. So that's all I wanted to say.
All right. Well, thank you, Bunny. Yeah, that basically what I was saying is, again, it's just a very attractive way of feeling, and it makes you feel like you belong. I think that if feminism was unpopular enough and there was something else that was more popular with young people, more people would just do that thing. Because a lot of times they just do it because everyone else is doing it. And I'm not saying that just to like belittle them. I just think that there is some pressure to feel like you belong to something. And that slut walk was a great deal. There was a lot of evidence to show that the women that were there, they didn't really understand why they were there that much, but they were there because there were people there that they wanted to support, or they made friends by being a part of this group, and they needed that. So there is that. But then there's also the more professional end and political end that Hannah was talking about. We're going to look at some examples of that in videos here in a minute. But speaking of videos, I want to show you guys a trailer for He for She. Allison, you want to set it up with any...
She for he, Brian. She for he.
Oh, no, it says He for She up the top. Why does... Oh, you know what? That's my bad. I wrote that. I was wrong. I was being androcentric. I put the man first.
Oh, busted.
For everyone who doesn't know, the She for He event, myself, Hannah, and Karen went to the Simon Fraser University campus and spoke at a Simon Fraser University Advocacy for Men and Boys event on the topic of men's rights and women, and how women can help the men and boys in their lives. And we titled that She for He. And then we got plagiarized by a bunch of feminists, I think. Or maybe it was a reverse, I don't know. I'm just joking on that one. Go ahead, Brian, if you got it queued up. Let's do it.
Just go ahead and play the video so you guys can
And this is the trailer. If you want to see the full video, it's in the low bar.
Yes.
So, okay,
later today we're going to be going to Simon Fraser University, their downtown Harbor Center campus, I believe it is. And we're going to be doing a combination event. It's going to involve a panel discussion, on why it's important for women to participate in the debate on men's issues and men's equality. Alison Tiemann will be there a little bit later on, and she'll be giving a talk of the same vein, on the same topic.
I don't know if we want to.
It just says that for
Yeah,
the
just
rest of the
continue
video.
that. Okay.
It's just like watch full video here, but
We
that's
didn't have to banana it. Yay. It's
No.
nice
No,
to-
no, it's our stuff. We don't actually have to worry about a copy. Oh, wait. Maybe we do.
no, we don't. No, if I do it this way, we're actually pretty safe. We can actually watch a good chunk of time, so I think we'll be okay. But anyway,
Yeah?
Oh yeah, totally.
All right. Well, I'm trusting you, Doge. Let's cue this stuff up and go into
Okay,
it.
so here I'm gonna play the next video. This is released by Huffington Post Women. I think it came out like a year ago, and I actually I saw it on my Facebook feed, and I made like an epically long post, and it turned into a large discussion. And if you watch this video, you'll see exactly what I mean with the desperation to which these people hold on to the label of feminist. Not women's issues, not the actual act of fighting for women's issues or identifying what they are or talking about the problems or even say, oh shit, I got disconnected from the server. Are you guys still there?
Correct?
We're still
Okay.
here. We're still here.
Oh, I got
Yeah, we're good.
disconnected from the server at SciTube. Maybe it'll still play though. We'll see.
Okay. Well, you know what? We can just chatter until
Yeah,
you.
no, I think it'll work. But the point is, here you'll see the video. Let me try to play it. Should work. Okay, so the server does appear to be acting up.
We apologize, people.
It's
all-
back on. It's
all-
back on.
It's all
This is
baling wire,
fucking
you know,
SciTube, man.
string and dog spit. That's what this show is held together by.
Mm.
And if you want, if you wanna upgrade our digs,
Where you know what?
www.feedthebadger.com.
I thought.
Go to
thought
the
we
Badger.
were doing-
Go to the Badger Cave. Go to the Badger Cave fundraiser, and we can upgrade this sucker.
I would buy your hot chocolate, Allison. I would.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I was such a fucking weird kid. Oh,
Come on.
it's going.
Oh, wait,
it's the old one. It's the
that's-
old. Yeah, there it's. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, later today.
No,
Wait,
that's
is-
not it.
It's not playing the right video. I have to.
Different button. A different button.
No, we're fine. We're fine. It's just gonna take a second. It's just
Jesus Christ! Help me.
Is it
We're all
still
fine here.
Okay, later
Is
today.
it still playing this one? All right, hold on. Let me just clear the. SciTube is being a dickwad right now. I'm sorry.
Why don't you
Copy.
like
No,
reinitial it?
We're good. We're good. This has to work. Why?
You know
why-
what? Just play the.
Is that working? Is that the HuffPo video?
Today,
No, it's still Simon Fraser. We still, Karen isn't even on this stream, and she's already dominating it.
All right, let's try. Let's try something different.
You know what? Turn the sound off and let it play through and get out of the shoot.
No,
maybe that's the problem.
You guys actually can't. They can't hear this. This is on your end.
Oh,
So.
it's on my end.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God! Then
is
I've
already in
been
the
I've been
playlist.
haunted by a phantom Karen this entire time.
Could be Weiss.
Oh, God. I think I need a moment to myself.
Will you be in your bunk?
I don't know why this is okay.
No, I think I'll be on my therapist couch.
It's crazy because this is like this literally on the SciTube page just now happened. Like literally as I was putting it in, it was like, oh, by the way, we fucked up. So I gotta like find it, get it going again. Oh, I see. Here we go.
All right, so officially this isn't us, friends. It is actually SciTube.
No, it is totally SciTube. All right. So I'm putting the video in. This has to work. You guys are still here. So.
Okay, everybody, put your butt cheeks tight and hold on to your seat cushions.
All right, I got it. No, it's up. All right, so check this out. We don't have to pause it. I can stop it after a minute or something, but we should be good.
Feminism has become something of a dirty word in certain circles.
What am I checking out?
A lot of high-profile
Is it not playing?
It is. It's playing for me. It's quiet, but I'll turn it
Yeah,
up.
okay, all right,
Turn it up.
women like
There we go.
Shailene Woodley,
Meryl Streep and Marion Cotillard have gone on record saying they are not feminists.
There's even a group called Women Against Feminism.
Oh my God, how could they do that?
But what are these women really saying when they declare they aren't feminists?
What they think they're saying is, I don't hate
Oh, please
men.
tell me. Please tell me
love
what
men.
I'm saying.
I don't
please
think
tell
women
me.
are better than men.
I'm not that kind of woman. You know, the crazy, bra-burning, feminazi kind. I'm a cool woman.
I don't want to put women above men.
For anyone who needs a refresher, this is what feminism means at its core.
Feminist, a person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes.
Hating men and being a feminist are actually not connected at all. Not
Dictionary definition, take a shot.
I don't know why they think they can still. They start with, I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I'm a psychic because I say so, and here's what I think you're thinking, and then what you're definitely thinking. But here is what this word actually means. It's one nonsense argument to another, and they think it fucking works.
It often leads to hilarious discussions. I posted a long comment under a post of this video on Facebook. And after the video went through and said feminism is not about hating men, feminists showed up to respond to my comment by demonstrating their hatred for men, showing they were invested in treating violence as a strictly male behavior and considering it justified if, say, male victims of domestic violence and sexual violence are discriminated against. So they can't even hold on to it long enough to like, they can't maintain the illusion through even a single comment thread.
Yep.
Like, they can say it, they just can't live up to it.
All right, let's continue.
Not even a little bit.
Feminism is about equality of the sexes, but right now, one sex has a lot more power than the other.
Men
Yeah, it's
are
women.
not systematically oppressed based on their gender, and that's a fact.
But women are, and that's a fact too.
So if you believe any of the following:
Reproductive rights,
equal pay for equal work,
seeing diverse bodies, ethnicities, and gender expressions on screen and in magazines,
providing education to 62 million girls who don't have access to it,
ending sexual violence,
having women in government, having women CEOs.
you know, basic gender equality.
Surprise!
You're probably a feminist.
Feel free to identify or not identify any way you want. But if you say
Thank you.
you're not a
Wait,
feminist,
what?
at least understand what the term actually means.
Well, that's what she's saying there is, feel free to identify or not identify if you want to. But before you say you're not a feminist, understand what the term actually means. Which means if you do not identify as a feminist, then that means that you do not believe in all the stuff that we just outlined. Therefore, what's the saying that woman said? I forget her name. You're either a feminist or you're a bigot, and there's no other option.
Yeah, because what they're basically saying there is you are required to agree that feminism is what we say it is, not what feminists actually do in real life.
Yep. And the thing is, well, let me finish the video.
And if you think that you're a humanist,
Ziva, we gotta go. We just don't have time for this today.
By the way, HuffPost just also promoted
I am
now
holding
this.
in the rage.
So apparently, yeah, and that's another thing we're going to get to is egalitarianism, trying to claim that. And this is the thing about feminism, or at least this brand, I guess. I don't know what it is for this flavor. Feminism is, it has to own everything dealing with gender that is good is theirs. Anything else is not theirs. They don't claim it if it's bad. Only the good stuff. Feminism has all the good stuff. It's all under the feminist label. And if you say, well, I'm an egalitarian or I'm a humanist, you know, like Straughan was pushing that, you know, people call themselves humanists, they will demonize that as well. They've already started to do that. And I can show you guys proof in a video that I also have here. It's about how egalitarianism is an MRA construct. Because MRAs have this much power, but we're going to get to that in a second. So
This is such, yeah.
Go
It's
ahead,
such
Bunny.
I'm sorry. I warned you. This is blood in the water for me because it's such passive aggressive horse shit. All this is saying, well, you don't have to wear Grandma Ruth's sweater that she knitted you. I know you don't like it, but if you don't wear it, well, this could be your last Christmas with her. But it's okay. You don't have to wear the sweater. We all know what that means. It's so passive aggressive. Oh God, just be aggressive aggressive.
I know. It's like that Family Guy skit. Men, we know how to be friends. You know. You ever seen that?
I gotta.
Okay, Allison.
I'll rage in a low decibel. Unless you want to continue, Bunny.
No, I was just going to say I need a shirt, and this chat will have inspired me to do this because this is fabulous. I am not a feminist because I do not want to use Doc Bronner's magic virus soap. I am going to get this shirt made up because this is so pernicious, and nobody who hasn't watched the stream will know what that means, and that's fine. But I'm going to wear it to school and get a secret little happiness when feminism is inevitably forced down my throat. I'm pretty sure I have to do more sensitivity training this year. Like, what? And there's this, it bugs me so much that there's this condescending, smug fucking attitude that if you don't agree, you just don't know any better. No, I do fucking know. I have read the books. I had a library full of all this feminist bullshit, okay? I know it. I have read it. I reject it. I'm not a moron. And I hate that, well, you just don't know. Anyway, okay, I'm going to shut now. Go ahead.
I concur. Well, you see how they completely negate any possible way of criticizing feminism. And here's the big reason, HuffPo, why I don't call myself a feminist, because you can't criticize it.
Yep.
You can't criticize it.
Yep.
There's how the hell would you know if that criticism was correct or not? You just insist on saying your road crew repairs roads, even in the face of citizen committees showing you road after road full of potholes and pits of gators, you know, and like cliffs that go nowhere, just fall, dead drop, and they're saying these are not roads. These are death traps.
Exactly.
These are death traps.
There are no.
And you keep saying you are the road crew that keeps pointing to the government. Mandate. We repair roads. Therefore, how can you say we haven't repaired these roads? Because we repair roads. That's who we are. So you can't criticize us.
Yeah, if you make sure, like step one, make sure there are no objective metrics, because that way you can tell everyone they're fucked, and they can't prove you wrong. No objective metrics. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, and they just keep saying, what is the dictionary definition of a road crew? A road crew repairs roads. Therefore, you can't say these roads aren't repaired. It's like, oh, and you know what's so funny is it's sometimes really hard to straighten out that logic in a way that just doesn't make you sound like a gibbering idiot. And I don't even, it's like,
it's because they can get away with it. It's a little bit like when there's only one phone company in your entire district, so there's no competition left, so they can just treat you like shit and go, yeah, whatever, what are you going to do, go to someone else? You can't. And it's so ironic that people will complain about that shit and then be in favor of globalism, because that's what you're working towards.
Oh,
you know, the first step is feminism, you know, one who everyone has to agree on what equality means, and because there is no competition left for the concept of equality, because no one else wants to touch it, because there's death now to even say I'm in favor of equality, because like I say, no one knows what that fucking means anymore. It's been so fucking dirtied by decades of feminism.
You cannot question their conclusion that women have it worse. You can't question it ever.
Mm-mm.
But how do they know it's right if you can't question it? Just they feel it in their bones, in their widdly bits, like.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably not their bones that they feel it in. Actually, in fact, it's definitely not their bones, considering how vagina-obsessed feminists are, to the point where, you know, you go to certain feminist meetings and what's the first thing that they yell? Are the vaginas in the house?
Yeah. Oh my god.
You know,
feel it in my vulvas.
I will never forget that video Karen did where she starts out talking about that after going to a feminist event. You know, like she's like, "Are the vaginas in the house?" And Karen gets this look on her face.
God.
I have noped the fuck out of things when that has come up.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I've just been like, nope.
Wait,
Nope.
you don't like defining yourself by your reproductive organs in every instance? Is
Well,
that what you're
I try
saying?
I try very hard not to be a pussy, and just frankly.
Oh,
That's it. To be honest, they're
ew.
defining themselves more by their victim status than anything. Really, it's and they just use female parts as like an excuse for that. I'm a victim because I have female parts, and female parts are mistreated. And they use circular reasoning. They go through every step of like it's almost like they looked up, the list of logic fallacies. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to check off this one. I use this one. Okay, I'm going to use the next one. And then I can check that off. And then I'm going to use the next one. Okay, have we done an ad hominem tag? Okay, well, let's check that off. Have we used, every single fallacy on the list? Well, let's see. Did we lie yet? Oh, yeah, we lied a lot. Okay, we can check that off.
Feminism
and that's how feminists argue.
Yes, and feminism is one big post hoc, ergo propter hoc. It's all after because of.
Yep. And
makes me crazy.
Yep, and it's like the biggest one is the way they support patriarchy theory. I love arguing. Actually, I don't really. I love arguing with feminists about patriarchy theory because the argument basically goes, we live in a patriarchy, and the proof is that women suffer hardship, and they'll name specific hardships, but women suffer hardship. That is the proof. Women suffer hardship, and women face limitations, and so then you go through and you point out that the same hardships that they are attributing to women are also suffered by men, and the limitations that women face are largely put on themselves, by themselves, not placed on them by outside forces, and especially not placed on them by men. And they'll turn around and say, well, it's different for women. Well, why? Why is it different for women? Why is it worse when it happens to women? Why does this make it oppressive for women, but it's not oppressive when it happens to men? Well, it's because we live in a patriarchy.
Mm-hmm. And around and around we go.
Just used that as evidence of the patriarchy. It cannot be worse because we live in a patriarchy if it is evidence for the fact that we live in a patriarchy, which is not a fact. Obviously, either these people didn't take critical thinking, or they think that you don't engage in it, you can't engage in it, and they get pissed off when you point it out. Circular reasoning. No, it's not. It's this. It's that. It's it's proof, and you never can get past that.
Okay, so
you never.
Oh, go ahead, Allison. I mean, Hannah.
You never can get to a point where, if you discuss the idea of logically critiquing the theory, they're willing to do it. Because as soon as you do that, you start challenging their ability to wallow in victimhood. This is the thing I was going to say earlier. One of the main reasons why many, many feminists are invested in their religion, and it is a religion, is that it gives them an excuse to hold on to resentment and to ask for special treatment based on that resentment, because they're wallowing in their victimhood. Mm-hmm. It is their justification for indulging their feelings, their justification for indulging their wants and their needs. It's the biggest excuse anybody ever had for living out sort of a borderline personality type fantasy. I am the most important person in the world. That's what feminism gives them. And it's not just about belonging. And that's why they're going to be this irrational. That's why they're going to constantly play the victim. That's why they're going to constantly throw fallacies at you. And that's why they make videos, passive-aggressive videos like this. Yep. Because they need that to feed their addiction to victimhood and feeling important.
It's rooted in insecurity in many ways, and ego.
Okay, before we continue, I do point out that we are conjecturing about their mental states as well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's not just conjecture. It's evidence-based. It's based on their behavior. Because this is not, this is not something that you just look at a couple of statements and say, well, that's why this is happening. This is every single time you talk to a feminist. This is all of their writing. This is all of their lobbying. This is every video they put out like this. Mm-hmm. And
Well,
it indicates a particular mindset and a particular mentality.
Well, since I have a few clips, why don't we watch all of them and then see what we can draw from it? This way, I can get through them relatively quickly.
The next one is 4 minutes and 50 seconds.
We don't have to watch the whole thing. This is just a little bit of the beginning. It's
okay,
not, we don't have to watch the whole
bit.
thing. No, some of these are longer, but they're time. Like I have a time limit to watch them. So no worries. Besides, I don't know how much of Lacey Green you could put up with. So
is that what's about to come?
This is a Lacey Green, yes.
Oh God.
Okay, so these are old. But here's the thing.
That's good. I have flashbacks from the last time I watched Lacey Green.
This is an old video. This is actually, I think it's her first one where she came out and said she was a feminist. So we don't have to watch the whole thing, but you're just looking at we're looking at the logic. What we're looking at is the logic and the common threads in the logic behind their explanations. Okay? So
the rumors are true. What they've been saying about me. I have to come clean. I, Lacey Green, am a feminist. What? You're a lesbian now? Man-hater? Hairy armpits? It ain't so. It's gonna be okay. Those are just stereotypes. I think that feminism is both kick-ass and super important.
Condescending.
And here are a few of my reasons why. I'm a feminist because girls are taught in public school that once she has sex, she'll lose a part of herself. Because women who have a lot of sex are sluts while guys are studs. Amanda Todd,
Okay, you gotta stop. You gotta stop. Okay, girls are taught that they're gonna lose a part of themselves with virginity. And boys have a part of themselves cut off at birth.
Well, but this is the thing. Girls are taught that their virginity is valuable. They are taught that that part of themselves matters. Boys are taught that it doesn't. It's just a throwaway. The only thing that's important in their first sexual encounter is whether or not they do a good job for the girl. And who's oppressed here? The girl? I don't think so.
And some might be saying, yeah, but Lacey's against circumcision. Yeah, but she conveniently forgets that it exists for the sake of making what about the women's point. So it's all. It doesn't fucking matter how in favor of it she is.
Okay, no,
she doesn't take it. But
she's against circumcision in the context of believing that women are worse off because high school teaches them that they'll lose a part of themselves during if they're a virgin they have sex, but boys have a part of themselves cut off. And in fact, if you look at the history of circumcision, it probably was because there is I don't know for sure. I'm don't know about the anatomy enough, but the process of first penetrating a woman actually can break skin within the. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, from a healthcare perspective, you're exactly correct. And even in adult men who have a lot of sex, if they're with a particularly tight Asian pussy partner, gotta get that in there.
Wow.
Yeah, it can still tear, and it's not pleasant, but it's workable. You just go slow and use a lot of lube and a lot of Berry White. But yeah, so you're correct, Allison.
So there are sometimes adhesions, and it's almost sort of a corollary to the female hymen. So boys have a form of physical virginity, so they do also lose something during first, if they're intact, and that's possibly the origin of where circumcision came from, to permanently remove boys' virginity. And she's comparing that, cutting it off, with just telling girls, oh yeah, you lose something when you have. Who gives a shit? You lose something when you have sex for the first time. Well, yeah, you do. You lose not having ever had sex. I mean, you lose something in a transition between one state to another. I mean, it's a completely innocuous, vacuous statement. And what I'm saying is that she may oppose circumcision, but she opposes it in the context that women always have it worse. So
she's actually treating something good as something bad. Because what girls are told is that their sexuality is so valuable that they should protect and preserve it and keep it to themselves and only share it with somebody special. And they only get to have their first time once. So it matters. It matters who they have it with, and it matters what they experience. That's what girls are told. And yeah, it comes out in the context of you're going to lose your virginity. And, you know, frankly, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a negative. I think that's a positive, because it is being treated like something that is valuable to the girl, and the girl has the right to value it. Boys don't get that. You know, in society, boys do not get told they get to value their first time. They don't get told that they get to value their virginity, that there's something special. And, you know, when I talk to my kids about stuff like this, I didn't tell my son something different than I told my daughters with respect to that. You know, the only thing different that I talk to him about is risks that he faces that they don't, because he's a boy. And so he can be subjected to false accusations. He can be subjected to, he can end up with a child support debt. You know, he can be blamed for being a father of a child that's not even his. But he's not going to get told in school that his first time should be something special, and that he should only share it with somebody special because his virginity matters. He didn't get told that. Only the girls got told that. Only the girls got told they were special. Only the girls got told that they were valuable and important. Boys are told what to do. Girls are told what to expect from other people, what other people should do for them. And Lacey Green is treating that as an imposition on girls. And by the way, boys who have a lot of sex are not just talked about as studs. They're talked about as players. They're talked about as cads. They're talked about as risks.
Dogs.
They're talked about as potential rapists. If a boy has a lot of sex, he's engaging in rape culture. You know, this is not something that is positive on the boys' side and negative on the girls' side. Both sexes get told stupid things about themselves if they have a lot of sex. Neither one gets told the truth at school. Okay. Neither one gets told, you know, that it's dangerous for them, that they're putting themselves at risk, and that they should be more careful. You know, it's stupid for her to go off like this. She's talking about the wrong shit, and all she's doing is engaging in victim baiting.
Okay, guys, let's get back to the putting our names and then typing when we're done.
Okay.
Just because we're starting to talk over each other, and that tends to end up in a chaos.
All right. I'm going to hit play on the video. I want to get a little bit further because I want to show the other ones.
No, no more Lacey.
I just, she has a couple more things to say, because this is the thing. My point for this is that she's making the claim, whether these little factoids are true or not. The point is that in her mind, feminism is the only solution to these problems. There is no other way to fix these problems, real or imagined, except feminism, even men's problems like circumcision, which she does bring up. But she thinks feminists are the ones that are going to fix that.
Because of the sexism that drove them to end their lives. I'm a feminist because I was told the first time I had sex would be painful and bloody. I was terrified. Because 1 in 4 young women is assaulted and society still asks, what was she wearing? Because male victims of rape are believed since guys want sex all the time anyway, right? Because of catcalling and street harassment.
You gotta
because
stop
no, it is not a f***ing compliment.
I guarantee MTV is going to really come down hard. No more Lacey.
Well, this is actually not MTV. This is Lacey Green's own channel.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, she probably has at this point the same algorithm, because she's big enough to actually get that now.
All right. Okay. I'm just going to point something. I think I remember this one. This is the one within a few sentences she completely contradicts herself. She says that men are not believed when they're rape victims, but if all rape victims were men, rape victims would be treated better. Mm-hmm. She says this in this fucking video, and people just swallow this whole two completely contradictory concepts in one, and they just swallow it. What is the mechanism? How do people unhinge their jaws and swallow a gigantic mega Godzilla cow poop like this?
I can tell you that.
Yeah, I was.
This is the fast-talking, hard-sell sales pitch tactic. If you throw enough at the individual, fast enough, with enough triggering type words or at least emotionally loaded phrases. If you do that, you will always get them to swallow things, except for the most savvy of people. You always get them to swallow things that are bullshit. You can feed people huge loads of bullshit by doing that. And she's made a career out of it.
Mike, say your piece before we go to the next thing.
Yeah, I don't know if we've sort of passed it yet, but we're sort of still talking about virginity in a way, and to some degree, losing virginity is actually a pretty important transition, because you're going from sexually inactive to sexually active. After your first time, if you're heterosexual, you are potentially responsible for a child, as long as you know that's how it works, and pretty much everyone does by that point. And up until that moment, you cannot be feasibly called a parent. But after that, you might have been a parent. Events conspired, that you weren't, but you are now in a universe where it's, there's a possibility that you might be a parent and you're responsible for that. So it's important to prepare children, to cross over to this really quite scary world of agency, of responsibility for another life. So in a way, we're right to warn girls about losing their virginity, like Hannah was saying. We're sort of right to let them know, hey, it's not necessarily losing a part of yourself, but it's, psychologically speaking, you really are crossing a barrier. But we don't do that with boys. We tell them to get it over with as soon as possible. Be a responsible parental figure as soon as possible. Get your childhood behind you, or your series of derogatory terms and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Word salad comes out. Okay, so this is another clip from a video called The 3 Laws of the Internet Explained. I'm only going to show an excerpt from the second law, which I can't even remember the name of the fucking law, but you'll remember when you see it, and this is hilarious stuff, so.
Are concerned. Lewis's law, coined by English journalist Helen Lewis, states that the comments left on anything about feminism will, quote, justify feminism, which is important and necessary because women are not equal citizens. And I know about egalitarianism. At its best, egalitarianism is another word for feminism, but at its worst, it is a diversion, responding to fears that by giving women more power, that means men will have less, which is not.
This. Oh, for fuck's sake.
It's not just circular reasoning, it's a really tight, fast, so it's like a fucking large hadron collider, but in a singularity of circular reasoning.
This is working. Like, the stream is still going. We're not going to get pulled down, I swear.
If we do, I'm going to be like, I'm going to give you such stink eye, dog. Okay. Such stink eye.
I have this figured out, I think. Okay, so he says, at best, egalitarianism is still feminism, so, checkmate, you're still a feminist, even though you tried to avoid it. But at worst,
is a diversion, responding to fears that by giving women more power, that means men will have less, which is not the case. The only way that we reach equality for men and women is by elevating the status of all women of all races, sexual orientations, and genders. Egalitarianism is a men's rights project. Feminism is a human project.
Egalitarianism is a men's rights project. Feminism is a women's project. And he has established earlier that true equality means elevating women. Therefore, you need feminism. This whole thing has nothing to do, because he has not at one point does he or Lacey or the first video, which I already forgot, the HuffPo one, say, identify issues and ways to solve these problems. But rather, all of them just say, can we please stop trying to criticize feminism, because I need it. I need it, guys. I need this thing to continue to exist. Even if it just has to. And so one of the ways I'm going to do it is I'm going to frame it so that if you don't agree with this thing, there must be something wrong with you. You are a bad person. You are not, you're morally inferior. You don't have, you're stupid, or you mean well, but you're actually still doing what I think you should be doing, i.e. you're still a feminist, even though you don't know it.
Okay, can I just say something?
Yeah.
Feminists don't have an exit strategy. At some point, you're going to elevate women above men. Even if you allow that they are still below men, at some point, if you focus constantly on elevating women above men, you are going to end up elevating women above men. At what point, how does feminism recognize when that point happens?
It doesn't, because that's already happened. Women have been elevated above men. When women make a claim in court regarding certain criminal accusations, men's right to due process, men's right to be considered innocent until proven guilty, men's right to present evidence against their accuser's accusation in court, men's right to even face their accuser in a court of law it's impinged. It's reduced, and it has been reduced specifically for the purpose of making it less of an ordeal for a woman to make those accusations and go through the court process, whether the guy is guilty or innocent. So it's already been done. Women are above men. It's already been done in a number of ways. Feminists are fighting for equal pay even when work is not equal. And they're coming out and admitting it, even though they're not saying they're admitting it, by talking about unequal work as if because feminists are doing things that, or women are doing things that feminists value, that makes it equal to things that men are doing that are actually valuable to the employer. And therefore women are owed money from their employer for things they do at home, as if that benefits the employer. Like they don't understand what a paycheck is payment for. Women are above men. Women are above men so far that women and men in the United States get mouth-foamingly outraged over genital mutilation of women in third world countries, in small portions of the world, small populations, very tiny number of women that this is happening to in comparison to the number of men, the number of boys whose genitals are being mutilated at birth all over the world. And it is more outrageous to pretty much society in general, the idea that even a pinprick should be done to a girl's genitals, even voluntarily, than it is that boys' foreskins are cut off to the point where they're suffering terrible damage. In some cases, to the point where the skin of the scrotum is pulled up over the penis in the healing process.
Ah.
Yes, I know, and it's horrible, and it's also not uncommon. And it's a terrible mutilation. It's a terrible thing to do to a child, and yet it's routine. And we have very little public outrage over this, and we've even had a judge order a parent to sign consent for this to be done to her child over her objections that it is hurting and harming the child, because the judge decided that it would be better for the child's health. Never in the United States would that have happened if the child was a girl. Women are above men. We're above men in so many ways, and we're completely unaware of it as a gender. So it's already happened, and feminism is still claiming victim status.
You say women are above men, but you just gave an example of the court overriding the wishes of a mother, which goes to show you that any respect that the system has for women is overridden by whatever the hell it has for men, and indeed baby boys.
Yeah.
The hatred they have for baby boys is more important than the love they have for women.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that show other than that? But they say they can get away with it because everything they do is equality, even though they're at the point now where legal equality is not what they're after. Because we talk about things like you were just talking about, Hannah, like legal equality that can be achieved. That is something that is on paper and can be traced to something, and it's a hell of a telltale sign when feminists are only interested in social equality. They call it social justice now, and they consider it more important than legal equality, because social equality really is the perfect two words to encompass the amorphous higher power, because it can be whatever the hell you point at. It could be like, you whistled at me on the street, so you should go to jail, because social equality is more important than legal equality in the other fucking direction. Hey.
Okay. I'm gonna hit play. Okay, Bunny, yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, and apologies for everyone listening about the over-talking. I just discovered a little chat window. Oh my gosh, so I can raise my hand now. So I do apologize.
No, you are being an authentic Karen. We like it.
The one thing I wanted to get at with, which I was trying to get out badly in the Lacey Green clip, is just that we actually do punish boys for not having enough sex. If they are still a virgin when they're 18, that is not considered a sign of someone who is well-adjusted or popular. So, yeah, so that's the first point there. The second one about circumcision, Mike, you're exactly correct. And this is something I've observed a lot, of course, in my studies and exposure. There's this idea with circumcision of almost like a greater good for sexual preferences. And I find this a little gross myself, to be inflicting your sexual preferences on a baby. So that is shocking to me, and I'm going to read up on it because it's a little more, it's another arrow in my quiver. But I think it does come from this is in the best interest of a child because it will make him more popular with women. And I kind of, like, my toes just curled up into themselves saying that.
Imagine the gender reverse of it. Imagine we should cut off girls' clitoral hoods. If we say we should cut off girls' clitoral hoods because it'll make them more popular with the boys. We should get girls' breast implants because it'll make them more popular with the boys. It's actually a more realistic thing to say that one. But imagine
that would be an actual meninist statement, wouldn't
it? Yeah, the parody. Yeah, but can you imagine the hue and cry? I mean, just look at how feminists freak out over things like the "Are you Beachbody Ready" ad. You know, just imagine how they would freak out over that.
All right, I'm going to play a little bit more of the video and then move on to the next clip.
There. Now this video will provide examples of Lewis's law.
So he just basically said that because I wrote this thing, people are going to comment and argue against me, therefore proving and validating Lewis's law, which is the law, in case you guys missed it, any and all comments in an article, video, or other internet space that discusses feminism, any comment written under there validate the existence of feminism, i.e., the validation of the ideology is so important and so it's so, like, all-encompassing to me that anybody who says anything, whether they agree with it or not, no matter how many facts they have, no matter how much they can support their arguments, all they're doing is further strengthening my belief in feminism.
Okay, can I just point something out?
My belief is falsifiable, therefore my belief is unfalsifiable.
Yes.
PBS. This is the public broadcasting system.
I remember that, yes.
This is the public broadcasting system.
Federally funded.
Federally funded. Someone is telling us that his ideology cannot be questioned because if you question it, it just proves the rightness of his ideology. That is a self-righteous, as Mike was saying, it's a self-righteous circularness that cannot be penetrated. It's a gravity so dense. It has it basically the universe is revolving around it. Okay.
Wow.
All right.
It just goes back to what I was saying about feminism being the ultimate self-indulgence. You know, the idea that questioning what they say is justification for what they say. It is the ultimate in self-indulgence. I am entitled to never be argued with. That's what they're saying. I am entitled to always be agreed with. That's what they're saying. I am entitled to impose my opinions on everybody. That's what they're saying.
And then they wonder why flat earthers exist. Like, if you can come up with this fucking bullshit, that anyone can. So flat earthers, fucking ex-denialists, whatever you like. If you can do it, anyone could do it, and it shouldn't surprise you that there are other such scientifically and logically illiterate people out there.
And isn't PBS the one that had that really awful quiz about how much you hate women and you were rated or something like that? They're down there in the pit right now. They're in the Sarlacc pit.
I used to like them when I was a child. No,
So did
just,
I.
Okay, well, anyway, I got it. Let's get through this.
It's like the crumbling edifice of everything that you grew up with that felt like it was strong and sure and right. And then you grow up and it's all just you get big enough you can look past the everything is just a cutout and you can finally I can't, but you can, Brian. You can sort of peek up over the cutout and realize that it's a bunch of fucking, I don't know what
Paper
to call it, lizards. Paper tiger.
Intellectual paper tigers.
Pit of snakes.
Yeah. Ellie, this was inevitable, really. When you give something to the government to run, eventually those who are involved in government, those who are involved in the administration of the thing that you gave the government to run, are going to start writing their ideology over it. It is inevitable, because they don't have to answer to anybody. They don't have to answer to advertisers. They don't have to answer to a CEO. They don't have to answer to anybody. So they can do this.
Yep.
They can get away with it.
Yep.
How many more clips, Brian?
I just have a couple more. I want to try and I want
A
to play
couple?
them all. Yes. I want to
Okay.
show you some examples. I'm trying to get through them. Okay.
And probably also eventually Godwin's Law. Lewis' Law comments justify feminism in ways particular to each individual situation, but the paradigmatic example is outlined in Alice Marwick's Wired opinion piece, Dunglegate, Why the Tech Community Hates Feminists. The inciting incident here is the internet conversation surrounding complaints about sexist jokes told at PyCon 2013. Lots of people felt these jokes illustrate the rampant sexism of the tech industry, while others thought that it was just ladies trying to suppress the rights of men to their frozen peaches.
Oh,
I'm just pausing for the banana. We don't really need to...
No, but here's...
Go ahead.
When you give women the right to silence men, you are taking away men's right to free speech, asshole, by definition.
This is actually really... This is a bigger deal than people think. Okay, we have a government-funded media entity mocking the concept of free speech with the idea of influencing the public to believe that free speech is not important. Do you understand the gravity of that?
Yes.
Certainly not when men are doing it.
Well, the women
but see,
are going
that's the
nuts.
wedge. This is something that I have said before. You have a totalitarian ideology. You have, oh God, how did I refer to it before? Authoritarian social micromanagement, I believe, is what I explained before. But this is an authoritarian, a totalitarian ideology, attitude. The easiest and most effective way to separate people from their attachment to their civil rights is to start by using female victim status to attack those civil rights only when men are the one whose rights are being infringed on, and they're infringing on them on behalf of women. You do that step by step, a little at a time, and over time, eventually, people will start accepting, well, free speech isn't all that important. Well, the right to due process isn't all that important. Well, I don't really have to have the right to vote. It takes its time. Well, it's okay if you don't allow somebody to present all of the evidence that might prove their innocence in a court of law, because we don't want to make women feel bad for accusing people of rape. And while we're at it, treason is such a terrible crime that if the state wants to say that you've committed treason because you have criticized something that the state did, we don't want to, make it difficult for the state to prove their case, because that's important to stop people from committing treason, right? So you don't get to present all your evidence either. And I mean, we have a precedent in rape cases, so it's really not that big of a step, is it? And that's what's going on here. It may or may not be deliberate, but feminism is the wedge to cut in between the general public and their attachment to their civil rights.
Yep.
We've been watching it cut and cut and cut for 100 years.
So you think that what you're saying is that the reason why people are embracing and promoting feminism is the same reason why we seem to have a desire for social micromanagement and authoritarianism. Some people just want to fucking see the world burn.
Well,
But-
some people, more or less, some people think that they're better than everybody else, and it's only they who are qualified to take the steps needed to keep the world from burning. And everybody else better shut the fuck up and get out of the way, or they'll set them on fire.
Yeah, and they don't do anything. They just say they just make platitudes and sentimental, sayings, and then they shame other people for not agreeing with them. That's what this whole thing revolves around. Is this basically people standing on the moral high ground, shitting on everybody underneath them, and not actually giving a shit about actual issues and doing anything.
Well, it's also taking, also slowly, as Hannah was saying, slowly separating us from our civil rights.
Yeah.
But speaking of the world, burning.
Okay, so next.
Thank you for the warning, by the way.
Yeah.
I very much needed that warning up there for at least 2 minutes.
Next is Onision, who jumped on the train because everybody's talking about it, and he really needed views desperately, and he's getting old.
Warning.
So.
Hey, there's this incredibly stupid thing on the internet where really dumb girls hold up signs explaining why they're against feminism. You people are so fucking stupid. And this is me explaining not only why some girls are against feminism, but why you're a total fucking moron for being against feminism. I don't need feminism because I'm not a delusional, disgusting, hypocritical man-hater. I respect men, and they respect really. You're not only gonna blindly generalize multiple times, but you're also going to assume that men just automatically respect you. I'm a man and I don't really respect what you said, because
I'm just pausing it for the banana. He's actually saying a lot about himself.
Guess what?
Yeah,
You
well,
won't
he
have
just
the right to
blindly-
vote without
You're a
He
fucking
blindly
amphibian.
generalized and then criticized the sign that the woman had up for being blind generalizations.
Yep.
feminists. You wouldn't have the right to divorce a man without
And it's
feminists.
not a blind
You wouldn't-
generalization, by the way. It's an original generalization. A blind generalization would be going to the fucking dictionary and reading out what you see.
Another shot.
And then he just finished lying right here. You wouldn't be able to divorce a man without feminism. That's not true. Women were able to divorce men for years before feminism.
Brian?
Yeah, I know. I want to get through the rest of this cringe film festival. I have
how many more clips beyond?
2, and they're really short. 2.
Okay, but
So-
you're telling me there are 2 more besides Onision?
Yeah, besides Onision. But I'm done with
Okay,
Onision. I think you guys get it. Onision
Yes,
goes
but
through and he
please
explains.
stop.
All right, I'm done. I'm moving on to the next one.
Onision should never speak without circus music in the background.
This is a classic. This is a classic one. I'm gonna go to where the great line is at, which is at about 4:49. So.
Believable.
Oh God.
Do they not realize that it was just literally decades ago that women couldn't vote?
Right?
Literally.
Celebrated the centennial of this stupid.
Wait, no, let's get.
Well, you
let's
didn't
keep
say how
going.
many.
I'm barely containing my fucking lulls here. Okay.
Literally just maybe 100 or so years ago, 100 and such a few years ago, that women were still viewed as chattel.
Chattel!
Of men.
That's it. Okay. So
I love this. Every time feminists bring up women couldn't vote and ignore the fact that the majority of men couldn't vote either, and there were some women who could vote. I just want to scream.
Yeah.
I just want to scream. What the fuck is wrong with you guys?
The king. The
Who do we
king
have to
ding-a-ling of
thank
them all.
for giving the other 4 out of 5 men the vote? There appears to be no ism responsible for that. Unless feminism wants to say, oh yeah, we gave those 4 out of 5 men the vote as well. That was us. Was it? Of course it was.
Can we talk
No,
about
there
the
was a
oppression?
suffrage movement before that.
Yeah. Can we talk about the oppression of Irish men as well for a while? Like
Yeah.
that Irish Irish men in Canada for a long time were vastly shit on. And but let's not get into oppression Olympics. I'm so happy with these
In
clips.
the U.S. too.
Yeah, I'm seeing all these people
you're
who
happy
are on
with
the.
these clips?
Oh, they're showing me all these people that are on the right side of history. I feel so good now being on the wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
All of these people they will tell you they're on the right side of history, right? And they will, and the whole thing is, when Matt Binder was talking about, how feminism was the only way in which women could have gotten a shred of equality, and there was no other way to do it. And now we come to the king, the alpha buffalo on the prairie, who also has some opinions, who he will tell to a woman, by the way.
Ask one more time on the issue of the right to vote. I mean, you can't just tar feminism with the brush of current day, some small strand of radical feminism. I mean, feminists got women the right to vote. Shouldn't you give an enormous thank you to them? Not just because you're a woman, but also because for the sake of humanity, they did a great service to all of us?
Let me go on to the next bit. We know Karen's response to that, so we don't need to see that. But I am going to jump to the next part.
And the answer is, of course, it's not a service to humanity to give one group of people all of the rights of citizenship, but not the responsibilities of another group of people, and then tell us for a century that that was equality. That there's no way there's no way on the Spaghetti Monster's green earth that was equality.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should go back to Karen's face there. Honestly, that is the face of a woman who knows she has the answer.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
I love that
next
expression.
clip.
Give me a thank you. Look, everything's going great, but you're not being reasonable. You're being ridiculous. Give me a thank you. Give me a thank you for feminists for getting your right to vote. Otherwise, stop voting and go make me a ham sandwich.
Whoa.
Yeah, and then the last one, and this is what I'm talking about. This isn't about the issues. This isn't about wanting to, because well, let me just play this last clip.
Karen, yada, yada, yada. Do you want the right to vote or not? Are you going to give a thank you to the women who fought so hard, sometimes risked their lives to get you that right to vote? Or are you going to just keep saying, oh, well, the women of Saudi Arabia love wearing their burqas, and the women in Britain who, while being oppressed and not having the right to vote, said, yeah, they like bending their neck and telling men that, yes, we shouldn't vote, we're silly little women. Are you going to give me a thank you for that, or are you just going to keep on blah-blah on that?
So I
sounds like Cenk, you're disenfranchising Karen there. And not only that, how did it morph from you got to thank feminism to you got to thank Cenk?
Well,
that's a good question.
I think that's very telling, because I think in many ways all of the people that I have shown clips of they're looking for the kudos, and feminism is just the vessel for which they would get it.
This includes a great deal of people who do not identify as feminists. But just like Cenk, they will nevertheless end up, by Freudian slip or otherwise, demanding their very own personal thank you on behalf of feminism. Even if they don't identify as it. They want part of that fucking glory sandwich.
Jesus, and the only thing you have to do is call yourself a feminist.
And actually, I mentioned something about this, and this goes back to something Brian said earlier, that there's a segment of feminists and actually social justice loyalists in general, that there's this disconnect that support between them and reality, that supports this machine that does these things, that gets these laws passed, that gets these policies passed. It's due to the tendency to want to perceive oneself as right rather than to actually be right. It's more important to feel right than it is to be right. And it's a loyalty you see in politics all the time. You see it in left-right politics. You see it in sexual politics. You see it everywhere. You see it with religion and anti-religion, too. It's treating an ideology the same way that one treats one's favorite university's athletic clubs. They're not feminists. They're supporters of Team Feminist. And many of them have no real grasp on the mechanics or method of the game that they're supporting. And that's why they end up in this mentality, and they end up acting like he acted at that moment, because she was challenging Team Feminist, and that was taking away a part of who he is. He's made it his identity, and he has to feel right, even if she has evidence that he's wrong.
I just find it amazing. I mean, at the end of the day, all of these people insisting that everybody call themselves a feminist. Just, no matter what. Why would you even want me? I'm a horrible misogynist. Why would you even want me as a feminist? Why do I have to, like, it's just so, and that's sinister and or possibly pathetic. Synesthetic.
Synesthetic.
No, that doesn't work.
Pathinister.
Pathetister.
Pathinister. Bunny.
Okay, go ahead, Bunny.
Thank you. Just to address your point, Allison, why would you want someone like me calling myself a feminist? In the old school do-for-yourself fairness and justice whole thing, I am a feminist. If you go by that definition of somebody who wants to make their own way in the world and prove themselves and try and be fair and is up for challenge and is up for discourse. But that is not feminism as it is being practiced and articulated and pushed. So I get into this in my comment sections quite a bit, with because from a certain slant of light, you could think I'm a feminist because I speak about women's empowerment, but it's totally the opposite of how it's being spun in the sort of virus way that we're seeing in all these clips. So I would make a great feminist, assuming your version of feminism is actually, not all this bullshit.
Yes.
Good thought experiment. What if you did say to your... What if Karen did say to Cenk, okay, I'm a feminist. I've mended my ways. I am now a feminist. Now what, Cenk? Presumably he'd say something like, well, how can you say all these horrible things about feminism now that you're a feminist? And she could very well go, well, that's my feminism. I'm the kind of feminist that criticizes feminism. And then what?
and then Cenk would say, well, as long as you're a feminist, I win. Because you agree with me.
She'd get the Christina Hoff Sommers treatment. She'd get the Jermaine Greer treatment. No, sorry, if the majority of the crowd doesn't like you, you're out. You're a bad feminist. You're one of the few bad feminists. Nothing changes. You're still bad, even if you call yourself that.
Exactly.
Did you know that there is a massive argument in the talk page on Wikipedia for the Christina Hoff Sommers article on whether or not she has the right to identify as a feminist, because some feminists disagree with her assessment of feminism. So they're wanting to label her an anti-feminist, even though she identifies as a feminist and has stated that she's a feminist and talks about factual feminism. They don't want to allow her to identify as a feminist.
All right, so I just wanted to say one last thing about this whole thing. I think that for me, this is an interesting topic that I come across not just with feminism, but with other groups, movements, ideologies, where the claim or the desire to belong to that ideology is actually more important than the actions or than the issues that that group or ideology claims to care about or represent. And I showed these clips specifically because these are pretty loud voices that, they don't have small channels. Some of them are really big. The Young Turks is, they
some of them are government funded.
Yeah, some of them are government funded. Some of them, bigger than Alex Jones. So according to what I heard, talk about Saudi Arabia all the time, you dumbass. And, but they seem so glued to defending their label of feminism or feminist that they're more attached to that than the actual action. And what that tells me is what I see is how it's different from men's rights. MRAs generally don't care what you call yourself. Shoe on Head is not an MRA. And just 2 weeks ago or a week ago, she did a fundraiser for a guy and brought Allison and myself on to help raise money for this guy who was a victim of domestic violence. She made a video about domestic violence. She's not an MRA. We are not going to say, do you believe that men's, rights matter? Well, therefore you're an MRA. We don't care. The only thing that we care about is, can we get these problems solved? I don't care what you call yourself. And I think that most, if not everyone on this panel and everyone that's been on Honey Badger Radio, not all of whom are MRAs. Max has never said he's an MRA. Scott has never said he's an MRA. I don't think they are, but they agree with us on some fundamental principles and issues. If you agree with those things, then great. If you don't, that's okay too. But we're not going to say you're amoral. There's something wrong with you. That you're a bad person.
Maybe a little.
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, but it depends.
At least you're honest about it.
I'm not going to do it because I think that most people.
I left on that channel was, "Don't worry, guys, you're not MRAs anymore. The stream is over," which was sort of my way of saying, yeah. Remember, it's an action, not an identity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't have taken on the label men's rights activist if it wasn't an action. Like, it is an act. I'm actively, and sometimes, the deep of the night, I think, oh shit, what the fuck have I done to my life? That's just me, right? I also probably think that about a lot of innocuous stuff as well. But it's like, it was an action. I took that not because I thought I was going to get beanies or self-righteous points over other people. I took it because I wanted to do what I could to defend people I saw who were hurting. That's an action. And it wouldn't have been meaningful otherwise. And if anything, I want people to make their actions matter. And one of the fundamental reasons I don't call myself as a feminist is I don't know what the hell the action is. How do you... I mean, you say you act feminist, but that usually entails just being an asshole and judging other people. What
would it take? What would it take for you to stop calling yourself an artist? It would take some kind of massive catastrophe, but it could happen, couldn't it?
Stop calling myself an artist?
Any given artist, what would it take for you?
I find artists to be aspirational. It's something that I aspire to. I'd probably stop calling myself an artist more like if I just was so upset with myself and my inability to do something or to do art in a way that I felt was good, then I might stop calling myself an artist. And that's the thing. Like, what
to me,
about
it all depends on the definition of art. Yeah. if what the majority of people are now calling art is something I don't recognize anymore, then I might have to not call myself an artist anymore. It's hard to imagine it happening until you look at feminism and you think, okay, I can't get behind this particular ism anymore.
Yeah, but I don't believe in artism. I don't even know what the hell that would be.
Yeah.
Well, no, I do know what it would be. In fact, I have a very, very, very strong image from my art. Never mind. Okay.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to finish my point, which is I don't care what people call themselves, and this goes for anybody on YouTube or anywhere. As long as they care, if they care about the same issues that I'm talking about, they don't have to call themselves anything. They can call themselves whatever the fuck they want. You can, I don't care what you call yourself. As long as, if you care about the same things I do, and you're you want to work towards it, you want to do a fundraiser, you want to help out like Gamergate did, or like Straughan Head did, or, Mad Cat when he helped raise money for Cytheria, whatever it is you're doing. I don't care about those things. I'm just glad that you're doing the thing. People who are who attach themselves to the label and they find that that's the most important thing, I feel bad for them, because if tomorrow, if the MRM became suddenly extremely toxic and destructive, and they were out there spitting bullshit and they were lying, I mean, not likely is any of this going to happen, but if it ever did, and I found that the label, as it were, was getting attached to me in a way that I didn't think was reflecting of my personal views, I'd be gone. I'd walk away tomorrow. But I would still care about the issues. I would still care about circumcision and domestic violence and the fault and the sentencing gaps and all this other stuff. And I wouldn't even think about the label. It wouldn't matter. It's just about the issues. That's what I care about. And these people don't seem to see that. They need constant validation for the label that they have chosen. They need it. And this is at the fundamental level, but obviously at a political level, like Hannah said, it's so that they can keep saying, well, what's the number one line you always hear when feminism talking about the accomplishments it's made? It'll say, we've come a long way, we've got a lot done, but we have a long way to go. Listen for those lines. Don't make it a drinking game, because you'll die. This is the contest, because they need to remain relevant at all costs. And what a movement should do as its primary end game goal is to become obsolete, to where it's no longer necessary. And that's all I have to say.
I'll tell you when I would stop calling myself a men's rights activist. I would stop calling myself a men's rights activist or advocate when calling myself a men's rights activist or advocate requires nothing from me. And that it ceases to be an aspirational thing or something that you fight for and just becomes a way of feeling good about yourself. That's when I would stop calling myself a men's rights activist. And when it became something that you could just use as a moral bludgeon against other people. That's when. Because I'm not interested in something that I don't have to aspire to. I'm not interested in something that doesn't challenge me. I'm not interested in a label that feels good. Because it doesn't. It feels necessary, but it doesn't feel good. So, I'm just putting that out there.
No one ever asks me if I'm a human rights advocate, because it's a silly question. Everyone knows it's a silly question. I mean, regardless of what I do, in principle, clearly I'm a human rights advocate. I will no longer call myself a men's rights advocate when that is also a silly question, and no one asks it anymore.
Okay, Bunny, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say, Alison, I think that's a good criterion for when you would stop calling yourself that, when it became toxic or unnecessary. The whole thing I think that we've been trying to nail down here from our different perspectives is that it's judging on action and not just adhering to a label. And this sounds so facile and so simplistic, and yet it is not something that is seen a lot. Definitely not on YouTube even. There's still a lot of identity politicking. But for the record, I'm fairly sure if I wasn't Bunny Blackwell and I was like the feminist Bunny, but I made exactly the same videos, I'm pretty sure you would still have invited me on. And that was very telling to me. That is how you approach it. So yeah, I think that's my final thought, and I suspect, are we heading out soon?
Allison, do you want to take us out? I got my finger on the button.
You know what?
The red shiny button.
Guys, we're doing a fundraiser for our Badger Cave. www.feedthebadger.com/ well, I'm not going to give you the slash. It's just essentially the one with the little badger crest. If you're interested in helping us expand our facilities and improve our offerings, and also I announced in the video this morning that I'm creating what I'm calling Honey Badger House, which I'm hoping to go through the legal process of making into a foundation, a charity foundation, to fund initiatives into education and providing services to address the gaps in social services for men. And I've already spoken to Cafe, who's Justin Trottier Cafe, and he has said that it's for the 5% that we are obligated to give each year, we can give it to Cafe, and he's given me some great advice. And I'm really looking forward to doing this because I have wanted to do something tangible to move toward creating services for men since forever, but I couldn't. I was in a position where I had to decide on administering Honey Badger Radio versus creating some services for men or some kind of thing to address the issues that men face in a tangible way. And then I think Honey Badger Radio does that in a tangible way, but in a different way. You know, we're changing hearts and minds, but it would be nice to build something tangible. And a foundation is something that I can administer. I can't administer services, but I can administer a foundation. I have to do a shout out to my husband, Jonathan, because he was the one who figured it out. That I could actually do both things instead of creating services for men, administering services for men. I could create a foundation to help fund somebody, the right kind of person to do that. And yeah, that's how I'm moving forward. And again, if you're interested in helping us expand our digs and make them, what is a Badger way of saying better? Expand our digs and make them more dirty?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Expand our digs. Once again, www.feedthebadger.com. We're sort of running out of space, and we need a place to stage better internet and get proper sound studios so we don't have to constantly hear Brian's neighbors screaming at each other.
They've been good today.
No, I heard them. They were screaming. Yes, they were. Or someone was screaming.
Or the cats, by the way. We don't have to hear the fucking cats anymore. Or the compressor.
Well, the compressor you're not be hearing. I'm just, sweating to death in a very, very hot closed room at the moment.
Then we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah.
Wrap it up, B. Okay. So I'm out. how else to say it.